All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Head in the Clouds from us at Go Cloud Careers. My name is Chris Johnson. I am the Chief Operating Officer. I'm joined by Mike Gibbs, our founder and CEO, and Alonzo Coleman, our Chief Marketing Officer. And we are here to talk to you today about, well, talk whatever, about learning what you need to know versus what you want to know, or learning what you need to learn versus what you want to learn. It's a very tricky topic. It's a trap that a lot of people fall into. I'm pretty sure everybody falls into it at some point to some degree. Even experts like Mike, I'm sure periodically
Yep.
might fall into the trap of, oh, I want to do this. I'm going to learn this. so so we're going to be talking about that. It's going to be a great conversation. Um, and we're going to have great insights. So uh, you're going to be hearing from our in-house tech career coach expert, Mike and Alonzo, and myself. We're going to be talking about how this topic relates to your tech career advancement and your tech career development. Whether you want to be an AWS solution architect, or you want to be an enterprise architect, or you're working towards any other type of tech career development, this is the topic that you need to hear, and to make sure that you are going down the right path. My camera looks a little blurry, so I'm gonna fix my camera. I'll let Mike and Alonzo talk for a second while I fix my camera here.
Why don't you kick it off, Alonzo, and then you'll come to me afterwards.
Absolutely. Well, it's always great speaking with these gentlemen and everyone being here. I really like that we have Head in the Clouds and we have an opportunity to speak with everyone during normal business hours. And we just get excited to continually integrate what we learn, how we're able to apply it to everyone, and so that you all have the best learning experience possible. So we're glad you all are here. I'm glad to be here. On to you, Mike.
Today, we're going to talk about some absolutely critical things to maximize your career. We're going to talk about how to get to your goals, how to double or triple your salary, and I'm going to work through some problems with you. We're going to actually look at the statistics and how to do certain things, and it's going to be real fun. I'm going to save that a little bit in because I want to make sure you guys are paying attention before we get there. But we'll get into some very essential business concepts that every world-class business learns, and I'll make it fun so it won't feel like you're sitting in a macroeconomics class. Today, we're going to talk about this. But we're going to teach you some things that are super valuable. We're going to spend time answering your questions because at the end of the day, I want you to have the best lives. See, on average, we spend 8 hours working, 8 hours sleeping, and 8 hours with our family. So why don't we get that as much as we want out of those 8 hours so we can truly maximize our time with our family and sleep peacefully at night as well, and not be worried about how we're going to pay our bills, how we're going to take care of our family, how we're going to send our kids to college, how do I get that job or promotion I want? I want you to know. And that's what today is going to be about. So we're going to talk for a little while and then ask your questions. We can't help you if we don't ask your questions. I don't want to be out there like the people that send me messages all day. Mike, I got a solution for you for this problem. I don't have this problem. I don't need your solution. So I want to teach you a little about, we're going to do a little consulting and work through to show you how you can maximize what your goals are.
All right. So before we get started, I do want to tell everybody about a couple of things that we've got for you, and a few things that we've got coming up for you to attend. So first of all, going right along with this topic is one of our favorite topics and one of our favorite resources about why tech skills are not enough to be successful in a tech career today. So that goes hand in hand with learning what you need to learn versus what you want to learn. And I'm sure we'll talk about that. So make sure to get that free resource, completely free, created by Mike, Alonzo, myself, and just make sure you have a good understanding of why those tech skills aren't enough and what you need to do to supplement those tech skills. So make sure to get that. Also, we have our How to Win the Interview, winning the interview every time. I can't remember the exact title, but we've got a free interview guide for you. So make sure you get that free resource as well, based off of our award-winning training and years and years of interview prep and interview coaching that we've done, and countless discussions with interview experts and hiring managers and human resources and everyone that is in the hiring pipeline went into our interview guide. So make sure to get those free resources for you. Also, we have a webinar, special webinar coming up next week about the secrets to winning the interview. Goes in line with the winning the interview guide, but we go a little bit further in depth, and we also talk a little bit about what we include in our training for you to be able to win that interview. So Tyrone, if you could put that link for the winning the interview in the chat box for next Wednesday, I would greatly appreciate that. So just wanted to make sure I told everybody about those things. And I guess now we can get into the topic of discussion. Mike, you want to kick it off?
Yeah, so let's start with the first thing that we need to talk about. Because actually, let's talk about a little bit how I made this mistake first, then, which is why we're talking about it. In my youth, I love networking. Do you know what I still love? Networking, and I love networking. When I was working at Cisco, I had a CCIE, which is, a relatively challenging certification exam to pass. It took me 6 months of hard effort for that, whereas I was able to pass a Google Professional Cloud Architect exam in 2 days, to put it in the context of the difficulty difference between the two. So I had a CCIE, I had a CCDP, which was their Design Professional Certification. I had an MCSE, which was the Microsoft Systems Engineering Certification. I had a CISSP, and I said to my manager at Cisco, hey, there's this CCDE certification. What do you think about it? And my manager says, can we talk? And I was like, yeah, I thought I was going to get training budget to go for the CCIE. And he says, what do you really want to be 5 years from now? I said, I want to be a leader. I said, I want to be out there that's really, got a great job. I want to be known. I want to be in the media all the time. And I said, I want the world to know what kind of architect I am. And he said, great, skip the CCDE. And I said, what? The most challenging design certification in the world? You want me to skip it? And he said, yes. He says, you're a qualified architect already. He said, here's the difference. And this is going back 20 years ago. He said, right now you're a $150,000 a year architect. And you know what you do? You design tech to solve problems. And he said, what if I told you that to get to $300,000 or $400,000 a year, and this is 20 years ago, it's not about your tech anymore. It's about the impact you can actually make to your customers. It's about improving their financial performance. It's about being able to influence your customer to make the right business decisions with technology that's going to give their company a competitive edge. It's the ability to sell a solution that you've created so expertly. It's the ability to scale, Mike. And I said, what do you mean scale? I'm not a router. And he said, Mike, you're one man. He said, imagine what you could do if you had a team of 100 that would follow you and help you get to your goals. You'd be 100 strong, not one strong. And he said, imagine if you had the knowledge to help fix companies' business problems. He said, you're already selling $40 million designs, but I'm talking about billion-dollar architectures. He says, you learn these things and you'll be a $300,000 architect. About a year and a half later, I was. And this is 20-some years ago. And that changed my absolutely life, because what I learned, what I wanted to learn. And how do you think I spent my spare time in those days? Reading networking stuff, because I love it. I still do. I'm a geek. I've got routers and switches all over my house. And if I've got time, I play with them because it's still fun for me. But it's not part of my job anymore. And learning any more of it would have been not only not productive, it would have kept me from learning the skills that I actually needed. We see it at the gym. We see a guy that wants to be strong. And what does he do? He bench presses and does bicep curls. Guess what? He's not strong. Now, they're not squatting. They're not deadlifting. They're not doing power cleans. They're not doing Olympic lifts. They're not strong. They're good at 1 or 2 lifts or exercises, but they're not strong. A professional football player is training at all. They're going to be strong. So the key is, are you training what you need to? Or are you training what you like to? What if I told you after 20 years of career consulting, I found you that 99% of the people learning are all the wrong things. And they're taking all their effort, all their money, and all their hard work, and they're doing nothing to get ahead. In fact, they work so hard that they actually damage their careers. I'll give you one more example, and then we're going to talk about the main content. I was working at a company called Riverstone Networks. It had been a company that was struggling financially. I'd been there, I survived 13 layoffs, and they had a position open for a director of sales engineering. They had one on the West Coast. They needed somebody on the East Coast. I reached out to the director of sales engineering on the West Coast, my friend Andrea, and she says to me, Mike, that would be a great job for you. I've already called your manager, Joe, and recommended you because you were the first person that came to mind. I called Joe, and Joe says to me, Mike, well, I would let you take this role and I'd easily interview you but you're the best IP multicast engineer we have, and you're one of the best in the world. There's only a handful of you. And he said, right now you're responsible for between 10 and 20% of all the organization's revenue. And if I give you this leadership role, we don't have you closing deals, and it's done. So I said, Joe, here's a question for you. I said, are you telling me because I'm so good at this that I can't move up? And he says, sadly, yes. 2 weeks later, I worked for Cisco, their competitor. But the point is that those skills only got me so far. It was only until I developed those other skills that I had these options. And I see it every day. We work so hard to learn what we love. But is it really what our clients need, what our managers want? And are we learning stuff for ourselves? Or are we learning all the wrong things that are going to actually hold us back? So we typically learn the wrong things. So how do you learn the right things? I know this is a ripe topic for Chris. Chris, you want to start it, and then Alonzo, and then I'll kick in, or do you want me to kick it off first?
I don't know if I really want to start it off, but I want to ask you this.
Okay.
This is how I'm going to kick it off. How do I know what the right things are?
Great question. Well, you got to get access to the right.
That's the problem that everybody has is how do they know what the right things are?
Well,
we could have an entire discussion about it, but I don't know if I want to be the one to kick it off.
Okay, I'll kick it off then. So we have to go to expert sources. When a physician wants to look up a new medication, do you know what he or she doesn't do? You don't go to Fred Aunt Martha's blog. They go to the New England Journal of Medicine, the Journal of the American Medical Association, British Medical Journal Circulation, or something that is peer-reviewed by experts. Do you know what they don't do? The doctor doesn't ask the nurse, how do I become a better doctor? Why? Nurses are educated professionals. You can find them with PhDs, but they don't do the doctor's job. So asking someone else how to do the doctor's job is insane. I can show you videos on YouTube from cloud engineers telling you the skills you need to be an architect. Every one of them should be thrown in the trash. Guess what? Now I'm going to tell you the skills that you need to be an airplane pilot, but I don't know how to fly a plane, and I've never done it before. If I tried to tell you how to be an airplane pilot, I would hope that you would just say, Mike, you're not a pilot. But you know what? 99% of the people go to a Reddit group, somebody's never had a job, and they're listening to them, they're learning all the wrong skills. They're asking somebody from a different career what to do, and they're not there. So here's where you get your information. Start by asking people that have made it to your goal. You want to be a CEO? Ask a bunch of CEOs about their journey. You know, don't ask their secretary, even though they could be equally smart because they don't know the job. Don't ask a junior level manager, and certainly don't ask an engineer how to become a CEO of a tech company because they don't know. They want to help you. They're smart people. They're good people. They're motivated, but they don't know. I have a rule, and let me explain the levels of professionals that are out there. We have what's called associates. You can have an associate cloud architect and associate cloud engineer, and you know what they are? Or an associate sales reps? They're trainees. Companies hire them. They're really bright people, fresh out of school. They know nothing. They hire them, and they train them for 6 to 9 months. And if they're good enough, they become a regular architect, a regular engineer, or a regular sales rep. If not, they get fired. So don't ask an associate they don't know. And everything they're going to tell you is most likely going to be wrong because they don't know. And I don't like to bet on my careers. The next level, let's say it's an architect or engineer, engineer 1, engineer 2, senior engineer. Guess what? I've gotten people with zero experience, senior architect jobs at major cloud providers and major consulting firms. It's their first job. Are they capable of doing that job? Yes. Have they done the job long enough to be successful and give you guidance? Nope. I wouldn't listen to them either. Now, the next phase, you're actually going to get the real people, which is where you're going to get your distinguished engineers or your distinguished architects, your principal engineers and your principal architects. Now we're talking to somebody that's made it, because they've made it through those regular architect or regular engineer or regular level jobs. They stood out head and shoulders above everybody else, and they're the top 2%. They can help you. So ask a principal architect, ask a principal engineer, ask a principal somebody if that's the field you want to go into. Now, don't ask a principal architect, how do I become the VP of sales? Ask a VP of sales, how to become a VP of sales. So now let's talk about managers and who you can ask. If you're dealing with a manager that hires architects, ask them what they want. If you're dealing with a manager that hires engineers, ask them what they want. And don't just ask one. Ask 50. Get a good sample size. Like in statistics, we need a certain sample size. Run your calculations. Throw out the anomalies. And take the average stuff in the center. That's your answer. That's what I did 20 years ago. I've been doing it ever since. Every CEO I can find, every CIO I can find, every VP of HR I can find, every director and hiring manager, I ask them constantly, what do you want? Why do you think our students work at AWS and Azure and Apple and Google and Cisco and IBM and Deloitte and Accenture and KPMG and PricewaterhouseCoopers and you name it, they're there? Because we've already asked our clients, what do you want? And we produce exactly what they want, not what somebody else thinks about it. So when it comes to managers, who should you really ask? First line manager? Probably not. Senior manager? Maybe. Director? Yes. VP? Yes. Senior VP? Yes. Executive VP? Absolutely. Why? They're the people that all make all the strategic decisions in the organization, so they know exactly what they need. So go to the right sources. And that's what you'll do. I can't tell you the number of people that have courses on Udemy that come to me teach them how to become an architect. It's every day, or almost every day. But how are they teaching what they don't know? Now, could you imagine training doctors on something like that? Here, you're going to learn to practice medicine. I've never done the job yet, but here I'm going to teach you. Do you think the doctor would be good? Of course not. Now imagine training an airplane pilot like that. I've never flown a plane before, but I'm going to teach you how to fly. Would you want to fly on that airplane? No. And no employer wants that either. So you've got to go to the right sources of information to get it. And that means the elite leaders themselves or potentially good journal articles. CIO Magazine has some good information. The CIOs read it. They hire you. Get in there. Actually, while we're at it, if somebody can pop a link to what is a cloud architect from CIO Magazine, just for the fun of it, because a lot of our students are architects. You know what it doesn't include? Coding. It doesn't include DevOps, doesn't include SysOps, and it doesn't include any of it. But it'll tell you exactly what they're looking for, and it's written for the people that hire you. So my team will pop that there. But that's really the key. You know, when I was younger, I made a good decision. Within 2 years of my career, I asked an executive, and that got me to principal architect real fast. But it wasn't until I was at Cisco where my manager said, Mike, you're already at this level, but there's no more. And in order to go more, you got to learn all these things, which they all made me uncomfortable, by the way, because I'm a natural introvert. I like to be shy. I don't like to be, in front of people. That was my old self. And they trained me to do the skills that I needed to. Either one of you want to add that? Because I want to get into a lot of really important economic factors and finance factors.
Well, I think you covered a lot. It's hard to come behind that detailed analysis and experience, Mike. But yeah, just to springboard off of what you said, it's just people need to step out of their comfort zones. If you want anything worth having, doesn't come easy. As cliche as that sounds, that's a hallmark for anyone who's willing to do what needs to be done to achieve their goals. And it's not going to be a cakewalk by any stretch of the imagination. Now, Imagine from my experience, I'm literally swinging from the other side of one brain to the other. Creative side, looking at imagination, totally subjective, using although a framework to get there, but it's still my positioning that I'm trying to pitch to people to try to convince them my idea is the best. Okay, let's swing to the other side, the analytical piece. Although I'm still trying to do the same thing as a cloud architect, I have to have a framework. I have to use analysis. I have to use documentation to substantiate not only what I want, but I can prove that it can do what it's supposed to do. That is a different execution. And I had to learn that using technology, understanding what it is, what it does, when you would use it, being able to apply a lot of these fundamentals. Believe me, it wasn't easy, but it was what I wanted to do, and I did what needed to be done to get there. And I know all of you who are our students at Go Cloud Careers are teaming up, working in groups, understanding what we're teaching on a weekly basis to get there. So let's look at not what's easy, what we know really well, but let's focus on the things. Let's not follow the past. Let's blaze our own personal path on enlightening education, competency, and coupling that with integrity to be not what we want to show, but what hiring and the industry wants out of us. And when you look at that perspective, you'll be able to continue to fuel your passion and let it pull you forward.
Yeah, so I want to add to this conversation from outside the tech industry, because it's not just obviously we're talking in the tech industry, talking about jobs in the tech industry or in tech careers, but the problem of learning what you need versus learning what you want are similar concepts of learning what you need versus learning what you think you need. That they're very similar concepts. They're not unique to the tech industry. So I'm going to take this to just an example from the hospitality industry. Let's say that there's someone that's working as a front desk representative, front desk agent, guest service agent, whatever you want to call them. And they want to run a hotel one day. How do they find out what they need to learn? Do they ask another guest service agent?
Most people would, which is
right.
sad.
Most people would. Do they ask a front desk agent? Do they ask a housekeeping supervisor? Do they ask a maintenance supervisor? The sad answer is yes, a lot of times. Now, are they going to figure out what they need to learn by asking those people?
No.
Now, ultimately, yeah, some eventually having an understanding of housekeeping and maintenance will be helpful. But in your direct role that you're currently in as a guest service agent, you should probably go up above you directly, not going out here to the right or to the left and then up and then all over the place to try and get to your goal. And I say all that to say that this is how most people operate, and this is how most people think. And I wish we had Dr. Johnson on here right now, because there's an example. I'm going to steal his example, but it's not going to be as great because it's not my example, it's his example. Think about in school, whether it's high school, elementary school, college, it happens at all levels. You're in a class and the teacher lets you break up into your own groups to work on a project or work on a problem. And I'm going to use American schools as an example because that's what I'm familiar with. And most often it's going to break down as guys over here, girls over here when they get to self-select. Or the football players over here and everybody else over here. Or the baseball players together and the smart people over here. They self-select. just like that guest service agent or that front desk agent is going to self-select and ask another guest service agent or another someone that they feel comfortable with. They're going to go to those people. They're going to gravitate towards those people and think that they're going to get what they need from them. Now, my experience, when we self-selected guys in this group and girls in this group in high school, it never turned out well for the guys. So, and the girls probably didn't want anything to do with us because they knew that we would drag them down. But if we were thinking right, we would have known to partner up with the girls because they got it figured out. But I'm just saying, like, that's the natural tendency of most people, is to go with what they feel comfortable with. And that is going to be a mistake. Because if you go with what you're comfortable with, then how are you going to get out of and move on and grow? And so I just wanted to look at it from the aspect of not in the tech industry, or not as a tech career, or not as an architect, or not as an engineer, but just in general terms. You have to go outside of where you currently are to figure out how to get to where you want to be.
Yeah. And actually, you bring up a funny example, and it came from high school, and then I guess we'll go to the next thing. I didn't know how to talk to girls when I was younger. I wanted to, but I didn't know how. Like around the time I was in high school, and all my buddies, be mean to this person. I'm like, I'm not going to be mean to someone. This other guy gave me some other stupid answer. Another guy gave me some other stupid answer. And I said, this is ridiculous. And I asked a few girls that were friends of mine, and I said, how do I talk to girls? And they told me, and then I got married, almost right after that.
Right.
My dreams, everything was smooth. Because the guys didn't know anything about girls. They were all pretending they did. And I asked some girls, what should I do? And they're like, don't do this stupid thing that guys do. Don't do this idiot thing that guys do. Don't do this thing. This drives us crazy. We like to hear this. All right. Thank you so much. Like I said, right after that, I met my wife, and I couldn't be happier. We've been together for 28 years now. But you got to ask someone that knows as opposed to most. And most people ask in there. When people are getting trained, they ask their buddies how to get somewhere. But if their buddies knew, they wouldn't be getting trained either. They'd already be there.
Yeah.
If you got an associate architect telling you how to do something, and they've never even made it out of their training, they may not even get hired. They may get fired and have to start a Twitter feed or something like that by the time they're done. Who knows? But if you ask the principal or the distinguished, they've not only done it, they've been promoted through the ranks, and they have the right skills. Otherwise, they wouldn't be promoted. So there's that. I want to get to the next concept because I really want to talk about this, and then we'll talk about those other things. But I really want to talk about supply, demand, and your salary. Chris, could you bring up the presentation I made a little earlier? And we're going to walk through a couple of situations together.
All right.
So I'd like to call your attention to two things on this diagram. The price, which is on the vertical side, and the quantity, otherwise known as supply, on the horizontal axis. I know there's an X and a Y, but I don't want to use any of those terms. See that little red dot? That red dot where the supply and demand lines intersect or curve, that's the price. I'm going to say it again. That is the price, that little red dot. And in order to improve a price of something, we either need to have extreme demand for a limited supply, or we've got to cut the supply down. This is what you get paid. And I want to walk through this. So let's say we're talking about software engineering careers, which in my mind are one of the worst careers you can build. Not because I don't like software engineers, and I'm going to go shoot through why. Everybody that studies anything computers in college, what do they get taught to do? Code. Can you go to Udemy and learn to code? Yeah. Can you go to a YouTube channel and learn how to write Python? The answer is yes. So the supply is huge. Now, what happens with ChatGPT that can do the same work as 80% of the programmers, the average programmers? Now the supply tripled or quadrupled. There you go. Now move the price down, Chris. And that's what you're going to see in a career where there's a dramatic, ridiculous supply. Everybody can do it. So what are we looking here at? A skill that can be taught easily and learned for 10 or 15 or $100 or even $500 isn't worth anything because there's no barrier to entry out there. A physician spends 500 grand on an education and earns $250,000 a year. Is their $500,000 education meaningful? No, they can pay it back in 2 years and earn $250,000 or more for the rest of their life. How about a lawyer? Same thing. And that's why you see high salaries with people that have hard barriers to entry. Now, Chris, I want to go to the next one. Next slide, please. This is an architect career. Why? And you'll notice it pays much more, and I want you to understand the difference why. I can find hands-on techies anywhere in the world. It's taught everywhere. It's a valuable skill, but there's a lot of it. Now the techie needs to have business acumen, because how do you solve a business problem if you don't know business? You don't. That's why we're the only people out there that train architects and why we retrain everybody else's boot camp graduates. I don't care whether they spent $35,000 like Daniel Bosu or $8,000 or $10,000. We have to retrain them all. Why? Here's what they're taught. One, cloud, the name of a service and how to configure it. And they're not taught how to design it, present it, or sell it. So, poof. So now with the cloud architect, we need business acumen. Is business acumen a common skill? No. That's why on salary.com, the average salary is $558,000 for people with strong business acumen. Do we need presentation skills for an architect? Yeah, we do. Now, here's the thing. How many people that know technology know business and can give a good presentation? Not many. Now we need to sell. Now, how many people out there know the technology, how to design it, know how to present it, have the business acumen, and can sell it? Even smaller. And look what happened to the supply. There's a lot less quantity, and look what you get paid. It's double or triple the first one. Why? Because almost nobody's out there learning these high-value, expensive skills. Cost me, me and Cisco and the companies, but my education was over $350,000. Now, we have a course that costs nothing by comparison, but that's why these skills are rare. And because they're rare, they're there. Now we got to add leadership skills to the mix. You're going to be leading teams. Again, the supply gets smaller and smaller and smaller. While we're at it, Chris, let's put extreme business acumen, move the curve over to lower supply, and change that price point. There you go, move that red dot up to the intersection. Again, now you got better skills. So this is the implications of how you do it. So I want you to think about this. If everybody's doing it, Chris, go back to slide 1. If you go to a restaurant and the waiter or waitress tells you to learn this, guess what? Everybody's learning it, and that's what you get paid on the bottom, because there's a massive supply. And that's why you've got to think longevity and what you're dealing with. Now let's have some fun with this. Chris, go to slide 3. Okay, right now, you see where they intersect? This is a supply and demand curve. Now, Chris, AWS just now allows free exam retakes. Everybody out there, to put it in the chat box. Is that going to increase the supply of certified people, or is it going to decrease the supply of certified people? Free AWS exam retakes. It's going to increase the supply. So, Chris, move that supply curve a little bit more to the horizontal. There we go. Perfect. Now, Azure, guess what? They now allow open book exams. Is that going to increase the supply or decrease the supply? More people are going to pass with an open book. Chris, move it down a little bit. Okay. Now, you can go to the internet and you can buy a copy of the exam and use a brain dump before you get there. Is that getting a copy of the exam before you take it? Is that going to increase the supply? Yeah, it is. So now, poof, move it down a little bit more. Now, free discount vouchers for everybody. Increase supply or decrease supply? Okay, and that's why if you look at that, the certifications are becoming almost meaningless. They don't help you stand out, and they're not worth what they once were. Now, they were worth once a lot 25 years ago. The CCIE was worth a lot. 3 million people attempted the exam by the time I got there, and I was the 6,400th guy to pass it. So that's what you saw on the second supply and demand curve. Huge demand and no supply. But now, as more and more people can get a copy of the exam, can retake the exam for free, can take the exam open book, now they're there. Now, of course, the providers made the exams easier and easier and easier along the way. The CCIE exam used to be a 2-day exam. First day you had to build something. Second day you had to build more. Then they had to break it and you had to fix it. It became a 1-day exam. What do you think happened to the CCIE pass rate? It went up. The CCIE is no longer a $300,000 average certification in 2023 like it was in 2001. And those $300,000 are worth about $600,000 in today's inflated dollars. This is really essential. So now let's play with it again the other way. So now, Chris, let's take this. Let's pretend it could be an engineering career right now. So right now, here all we got is certifications. Now, Chris, bring some expertise in something. Networking, security, I don't care, but just add some expertise in something tech. Okay, poof. We've already added some salary. Now,
not only did we, but we decreased, the supply decreased.
The supply decreased.
And the demand increased.
And the demand actually also will increase because it's hard to find that.
Yeah. So if you notice, the supply was over here. Now the supply is here, and the demand for that specialized person went up.
Now, do you know what the best predictor of career success is? Your level of emotional intelligence. Just by being more emotionally intelligent on average, meaning average paying jobs, which are nowhere close to tech, we're dealing with an additional $30,000. So just by having someone that can bring out the best in others and not respond to things and be hot-headed, we've automatically increased the salary. Why? Because the supply went down. Now let's add someone with good communication skills there. Add some leadership skills in there, Chris. Add some sales skills in there. Add some executive presence in there. Add some CXO relevancy. There you go. And of course, we're going to have to extend at this point the quantity to even make it keep up. Are you learning the skills that make you worth more, or are you learning what you find as fun? I hope this supply and demand curve, which we can get from macroeconomics or microeconomics. You know, when I did my MBA, there were a few things that were valuable. This was it. Because it kept me from making stupid investment mistakes. It kept me from learning commodity skills that everybody else learned that no longer gave me a competitive advantage. And it helped me find these skills. So now I want you to think about it. Now you're going on an interview and you don't have any experience. Now, but you've got all these rare skills. Now you're still dealing with a higher salary than someone that started out with commodity average skills. And not just that, you're getting hired when others won't. Because when somebody else is being turned down for lack of experience, which really means they're incapable of doing the job, not that they lack experience, it's a euphemism, something we say when people are terrible. But beyond that, we now have something that stands out. So now it's like person X is a little more technical experience, person Y has a little less technical thing. So now they're right now they're looking like this: seasoned experience, new. Now, the new one had some business acumen. They had some executive presence. They had some leadership skills. They had some sales skills. They had some emotional intelligence. And the junior person gets hired anyway because it's near impossible to find that person, and the companies are willing to develop them. Do you think that a company minds spending $10,000 to send you to training if they feel you need some tech skills? Or do you think these executives fly in a private plane that costs $15,000 an hour and they do it 6 hours a day? It's nothing. If you don't know this, when you guys get your architect jobs, your manager jobs, I promise you're going to be taking people to dinner and you're going to drop 10 grand on a dinner that has 10 people in it on your corporate American Express. And that's just the cost of relationship development. And I promise you that if you're a really good architect, you're going to spend $250,000 a year on lunches, dinners, and drinks. It's part of the cost of doing business. It won't be your money. It'll be the company's money. And I'll tell you another thing. Early in my architecture career, 23 years ago or something like that, I got called into my manager's office and my manager said, Mike, you're not spending enough on your clients. I said, what? He said, Mike, your expense reports for the month are $1,500. They should have been $15,000. Why aren't you entertaining your clients? Why don't you have these relationships? And I said, because I'm giving them good tech stuff. And they said, how much did your clients spend this month, Mike? I'm like, okay. Now here's Joey. Joey doesn't know half of what you know. But while you did 50,000, he did 500,000. Go spend some money, Mike. Go entertain them. And I hope that this supply and demand curve really gives you some guidance on what to think about. Don't be common. What is common? Average. Average is a C in school. If we did a true bell curve and everybody got a 90%, that's a C. That's average. So I like to think about Chris or Alonzo. You want to add to any of that content a little bit?
You hit that right on the head. That I think it just speaks. One of the things that I really want people who are our customers, our clients, our students to realize what is being said out in the community that Mike has already said, and it's doubling down his expertise and his capabilities. And you're learning this within your community. Think about the incubator that you all are in right now and how far along you guys are compared to people are. And I don't say this with any malice, but I'm seeing a perpetual amount of people who are constantly getting cert after cert after cert. And if you realize that no one is getting the attention that they're looking for as they celebrate their achievements, why? Because the certifications aren't as much or aren't as valuable as they used to be versus what you all are learning right here with the competency, the emotional intelligence, the ability to not only answer things in a good situation, but being able to face things in an ulterior one. If a customer is not happy, you know how to deal with that. If there's something that's happening or there's pressure or there's a tight deadline or you have to move, pivot, and change, get on a flight, do whatever needs to be done for the overall satisfaction of not only the client, but the project overall, you all know how to handle it. So imagine when you all get out into your real jobs and what you feel is the standard is going to be reflected as extraordinary out there. You all will realize how good you all have it, how well the training is, and how overall you all will be above and beyond what they expect.
I want to add to this. I want to add another layer to this conversation. So, we've been talking about the supply and demand of skills and knowledge or competencies or whatever this is. So if you're part of our community and you're one of our students, which I know many of, I'm looking at the chat box, and I know many of you all are, you know what I'm about to say. So if you're not in our program, you're going to get a little sliver of what our people know and are able to take advantage of. I can't give it all. I can't explain it all in this time period. But let's talk about this from the perspective of perception. So you're out there Think about it. Think about what your LinkedIn activity feed looks like. How many people? Let me just give me some kind of emoji in the chat box. I don't know what emoji I want. Just any kind of emoji in the chat box. If your activity feed seems to be a lot of people saying, today I learned this, or I learned this, or I completed this certification, or I completed this LinkedIn learning, or I completed this training on AWS course builder. I don't know. I'm just coming up with names now. But just give me an emoji if your activity feed seems to be a lot of people talking about what they're learning and or what kind of achievements they've got. I know mine is. It might just be me, but it seems like give me that 100 like Eric did there, or the scared cat.
Yeah, I just like cats.
Like Mike did there. But you know, it seems like everybody's activity on LinkedIn is talking about what the latest thing that they've learned. So let's talk about this. We got somebody that posts about what they learned. We got more and more people talking about what they're learning. Got more and more people talking about what they're learning. Got more and more people talking about what they're learning. Got more and more people talking about what they're learning. Look at what that does. Now, if you go out there and instead of saying what you learned, you go out there and say what you know. And you go out there and say what you're capable of and how you can change your potential employers or your potential customers and help them and improve with your knowledge that you have. Not what you just learned, but what you have. This is what's going to happen. Because now you're becoming that rare voice that's not talking about, hey, I just learned this today. No, you're that voice that's going out there and proving, not just saying, but proving by how you talk about it, that you know how to do XYZ. And you know how to take advantage of XYZ. You know how to use XYZ to your customer's advantage.
And Chris brings up a really good point. I know there's this boot camp which keeps telling people, talk about what you learned in class. So Chris has been hiring people for the last 15 years, right? Alonzo, you've hired people as a manager for the last 30 years, right?
Indeed,
and I've hired people. And so I'm going to ask them, but I want you to all think about this. Would I hire someone that just said, hey, that posted on LinkedIn, I learned this basic thing. They don't know what's a basic thing, but it's an intro level thing that a junior can do. Hey, I just learned how to do this simple thing today, like install an Apache web server. Well, not only is, there are probably 2 billion people on the planet that can do that out of the 7 billion, but I just learned it. Can I hire you for a real job? You just learned something? You just learned the basics of one thing. Can I hire you? No. No, but Chris is talking about, let's say it's a public cloud. So I had somebody that wanted to say, hey, if you go to the public cloud, it's going to be cheaper. He knew it wasn't cheaper. So then he said, you don't need expensive people. Well, would that be true? Well, no, we still need cloud engineers, which are expensive. We still need cloud architects. We still need security architects. So it's not that we don't need to hire expensive people. We still do. So again, posting that and a person didn't post it, and it's a very smart person, is basically saying, please don't hire me. I don't know. By comparison, if someone were to talk about why we love hybrid clouds enable us to put the high computational things in our data center. Because it's closer, we have lower latency. Because we control the data center, we can improve quality of service on the network. We can do which improves performance. We can do microsegmentation on our network, which increases security. We can use 19 million IOPS RAID cards in our server versus slow block storage in the cloud. And we can do it better, faster, and cheaper by leveraging the benefits of our hybrid cloud for constantly running things, and use the public cloud for erratic things or things that the demand is unknown or where we need more agility. Now that's a person that I'm going to hire because they've shown me that they understand it and they understand how to make decisions, and they can think about how those decisions impact the business. They get it. And guess what? How often do you see that? If I posted, if David Lithicum posted, or somebody that's a cloud leader, that's what they post. Post the same things that the leaders do. and not the stuff that the intro level people, because if you show me you're a junior, I don't have any place on my team for juniors. If you show me you're ready, I don't care whether you have experience or not, you already know, and I need people that can do the job. Now, I don't care anything. We had a student, Daniel, who's working at JP Morgan Chase. He didn't even graduate high school. They still hired him a cloud architect because he knew. Likewise, I've got somebody else that's got a PhD that doesn't know. I still can't hire them. So be rare. Be rare gives you that benefit on the supply and demand curve. It makes you stand out above everybody else. And that's how you're there. But learn the stuff that you need versus the stuff that you like.
Yeah, and I think there's another part of this that we can talk about is so going back to my example, and again, I go with what I know. I'm not a tech guy. I'm an operations guy. I'm a business guy. But well, I won't even go with my examples. But let's just go with the question. If you're talking about skills that you have or that you're developing, and you're trying to get out of wherever you currently are those skills that you're learning or that you're developing, are they going to benefit you where you want to be? Or are they just going to benefit you where you are?
Good point.
Are you learning the skills or learning what you need for where you want to be or for where you are? I think that's a critical point of discussion that we can have.
Yeah, and actually, you bring up a really good point. Now, this works for every career, but let me talk about the things that an architect really does for a second, and let's talk about the mistakes that engineers who want to become architects make that keeps them from either getting hired or keeps them in the bottom low-paid salary. So, and it's important because some of the people are would be otherwise known as the best prepared people in the world for it. So let's look at what we really have to do. We have to go talk to our clients. And we've got to figure out the strategic direction they want for their business. And we have to evaluate where they are now. And we have to evaluate where that business wants to go in the future. Now, if you think you can get that information without good communication skills, good leadership skills, good interviewing skills, and without business acumen, you can't, because you won't even understand what they're telling you. Now, the next thing, we have to determine, how does their business work today? How does the sales process work? How does the marketing process work? How is the product delivered to the customer? What's the customer journey like? Where are the constraints in the business? Is it in marketing? Is it sales? Is it manufacturing? Is it supply chain? We need to understand that. And then we need to figure out, if this is the vision for the company, how does the business need to be redesigned to actually make that work in the future? Now we've got to go examine the organization's technology. What's working? What's not? What's it look like? Is it peaked? Is it maxed out? Does it have capacity left in it? Where's the bottlenecks? And then from there, we need to figure out, okay, if this is where we want the business, if this is the vision for the business, and this is the new business processes that we've developed, what technology solves those problems? Now, there are tech skills, that section there. Okay, I need to be a private cloud, a public cloud, a multi-cloud. I need 10,000 virtual machines. I've got a monolith versus microservices. Which is better for this application? Should it be server hosted or should it be serverless hosted? How often is it going to be utilized? What are the cost implications? What are the performance limitations of serverless? Things like slow start, for example. If I use serverless too much, it's too expensive. If I use it sporadically or event driven, it's great. When a monolith, so we have to start looking and evaluating these things. Now we got a technology and a data plan. We've evaluated that. Does that have anything to do with how we're going to go build the thing now? Of course not. So now we architects don't touch the tech ever. I mean, we write pretty Word documents and PowerPoint presentations and build business cases on Excel spreadsheets, but you're not going to find an architect coding. You're not going to find them configuring. They're not going to be maintaining, and they're not going to be doing DevOps or any of that. Those are the skills from somebody else's jobs. And of course, people try to learn that when they want to become an architect. And you know what happens? They get 10 certifications and can't get hired because they don't have the right skills. Now we got to go build a plan. Now, how do you build an implementation plan? Well, you got to go talk to the executives, the key stakeholders across the organization. You got to find out what people they have right now, how you're going to implement the proposed changes, when the changes could be occurred, how and where, and the people resources. Again, that's more of it. Now, when you're done that, you got to figure out, build a governance plan. Who's going to be in charge when things change along the way? How many transitions need to occur along the way? And you know what? None of that involved touching the tech. Now, it involved a lot about understanding the business. It involved a tremendous amount of discussions back and forth. It had a lot to do with stakeholder management. Took a lot of leadership skills. You got to go sell the vision to people. And now you got to sell that. Actually, you got to sell your architecture design, which could cost $1 billion too. And you need to do that. And you got to show the customer that the value of the solution is greater than its cost, which means you got to build a business case. Probably have to respond to an RFI, RFP, RFQ there. We didn't touch the tech. We need to understand how it works. And knowing how it works is a big difference than knowing how to build. You can build day long. You could do 10,000 cloud projects. And I promise you, you'll have no idea how to design anything, because when you learn how to fly an airplane, it doesn't teach you how to design an airplane. Again, biggest mistake people make is they learn the skills for the engineering job and then hope it's going to retrofit to be there. But I promise you this, if you go to nursing school, nobody's going to hire you as a doctor. Believe me, I did. I went to nursing school and had to become a nurse practitioner to practice medicine. And it took 2 more years and it took another degree, and nobody would ask you to do somebody else's job. That's why nobody asked the flight attendants to go fly an airplane. So what does this mean? We now have an engineer that got out, and you know what they want to do? Because they love engineering and building, they want to do lab after lab after lab after lab after lab. And you know what happens? They become better engineers, which is great. But now they want to go sell $1 billion solution. They have no idea how to do it, and they get fired. And they go back to their old engineering job. Or they're lucky enough to get the job and they don't sell anything, and they're at the bottom with a low salary. Because they're learning what they love. While we're at it, I have a yoga buddy, and he used to like to say, let go of that which does not serve you. And what he was really talking about was, if you're stressed because somebody said something negative to you during the day, get it out of your mind. I had a Trinidadian friend, and he used to say, I was upset about something one day. And he says to me, Mike, he said, the person you're worried about, do they pay you rent? And I said, no. He says, they're not renting space in your brain? I said, no. He said, then get it out of your head. He said, they're not paying you rent. It's not serving you. And that's the key. What most people do is when they transition on, they still go back to what they love. Believe me, I'd love to be working on some SD-WAN environments and play with those controllers. I don't, because it no longer serves me. I know how to architect around SD-WAN, but I'm not going to go build a thing because it doesn't mean anything for me anymore. And it's worse than that. How many hours a day we have, Chris?
How many hours a day are there? 20?
Yeah.
24?
Average person works how many hours a day?
Oh, that's a rough question. Supposedly 8 hours a day.
So let's say it's 8 hours a day. And let's assume the average person sleeps 8 hours a day, which is not accurate. They sleep less than that. But let's assume they do. So they only work 8, they spend no time commuting, and they sleep a full 8 hours a day, which is nobody, by the way. But we're going to be generous here. So now you got 8 hours left in the day. You have a wife or a husband, better invest at least 2 hours a day spending time with that person, or you won't have one. Please, at least 2 hours a day, maybe more. Anybody have kids in there? Okay, yeah, most people have kids, or they have a cat like Cindy who needs to be played with. My cat needs to be played with for at least an hour a day, or she bites me. 2 hours a day and she loves me. 1 hour a day and she's not happy, and I've got a great cat. So now we're down to 4 hours left. Maybe you have to eat in there somewhere along the line. Let's say you take an hour on that. Now you've got 3 hours. Let's say you want to watch 1 hour of TV or play an hour of video games. Just one. Do something you like. Build model airplanes, model rockets. I don't care. Swim in your pool. Now you have 2 hours left each day. In those 2 hours, let's say you're an engineer who wants to be an architect, and you're spending time doing hands-on labs so you can keep your techie stuff together in a job that you will never do again unless you get fired. You only have 1 hour left to actually practice your craft. I want to say it again. Time is our most valuable commodity. We don't have enough of it. And every minute you spend learning somebody else's job, do you know what you're not getting better at? Your job. What that means is every minute you spend focusing on the skills of your last life keeps you from getting ahead. Because you can either take that hour, which serves you no purpose and spend it with your family, good investment, or you can spend it on your future career, good investment, or you can spend it on you. Again, good investment. Time is our own precious commodity. That's why it matters. Now, as business executives, we value every opportunity. And this is another thing that architects have to do daily, which is why we teach our students how to build business cases. And if you can't do this, you're not going to sell. I've got a $50 million opportunity over here with this cloud architecture. I got a $50 million activity here with this other project. And I've got a $50 million opportunity here. And I've got a $50 million opportunity here. I've got 4 projects that each require $50 million, and I've only got $50 million to work with. I'm going to pick the one that yields the greatest results. If you can't show me that your project is going to produce a greater rate of return of investment for me than my other projects, your project gets put on the back burner. Maybe next year we think about it. Maybe next year we think about it. And if we're an architect and we can't convince our customer to buy stuff, we get fired. When we can convince our customer to go spend that $50 million for us, we might get an extra $50,000 bonus just from a small project just like that. Now we do 10 small projects and we get a $500,000 bonus. You know, look, I'm not talking about salaries that are out of the range of realm. We're talking about leadership jobs. Here's a principal architect salary at Amazon. Average pay is $372, but the range is $291 to $491. Sales skills, interview skills, everybody. Business acumen, that's the difference between the top and bottom paid person. Here's a sales rep at Amazon. A person selling. $330,000 average pay. Selling. $255 to $441. Do you think they need a single for a certification to sell? No. How about a senior director over at, which company is this? Palo Alto. These are direct printouts from Glassdoor. Average salary is $540. You think the senior directors are configuring their firewalls? I promise you they're not. $425 to $709. You think it's just Palo Alto? Here's my old company, Cisco. Average salary for a senior director is $527, $528 actually. $417 to $689. How about a principal architect at Google? And these are people that are out there giving great presentations every day and selling. Pay range is $394 to $677. Wait. That's almost $300,000 difference between the top and bottom paid person for the same position. Why? Sales, business acumen, leadership. So I could go on and go on and go on, but that's the reason I want you to focus on the high value skills, not the low value skills, because you only have a certain amount of time. So I want you to think about this for every investment that you think about. First, is it the best use of my time? Mm-hmm. Will it yield the maximum return? I promise you, if you can buy it on Udemy, it will not. I promise you, if you can find it in a Reddit group, it will not yield any value to you whatsoever. Why? Because anybody can buy it for $5. There's no barrier to entry. So the next thing, after we figured if it's the highest or lowest value, is it going to help you get to your goal? There was an engineer that said, Mike, you're 50. I could teach you to code now. Wouldn't it be a great skill for you to learn? I said, why? I said, I can write my code with ChatGPT or hire a really rock star in India for $15 an hour. Let me focus on my $300 an hour skill or $400 an hour skill as an architect and hire somebody for $15 an hour. I can hire an army of them for what I can earn in a single hour. The person was a techie and they didn't understand supply and demand curves and where it matters. So is what you're doing the best return on your investment, best bang for your buck, and is it going to get you there? Now, the next thing, is it something you need or something you want? Meaning, if I could learn nothing other than networking in tech, I'd be happy. But do we need more than networks to make the world work? You think networking is enough to be at the highest level? No. Don't people need servers and storage and security? Yeah, they do. Now, if I wanted to focus on being the world's greatest engineer, I'd focus on being a master of networking. If I wanted to be a focus on being the world's greatest architect, I'd focus on business skills. Who are you working for? Who are you serving? Who's your master, so to speak? What are you looking for? My cat, Cindy, she directs me. She's my master. I can tell you that right now. That's neither here nor there. She comes up to me in the morning. She puts her paw on her face. She licks me and kisses me until I wake up. She walks me to her bowl. Then she rubs against my leg, and she does this on the refrigerator so I can get her fresh shrimp or fresh tuna. I put it in her bowl, and then she eats it and she purrs. You know, there's that. The next person who determines what I do is my wife. She determines what I do next. Only after that's done, after my students' needs are taken care of, after the company's needs are taken care of, and my wife and my cat are happy, do I even think about the one thing that I actually feel like doing. So make sure your priorities are straight too. Happy wife, happy life. I'm sure it goes the same way with husbands. I have no idea. I've never been married to a guy, but I've had a wife for 28 years. And if she's happy, I'm happy. But, you know, I digress far too far. How about you guys? You want to add to that?
Well, I definitely agree. I mean, that I said a quote, don't dress for the job you have, dress for the job you want. So make sure that your training and ability to do the job, you showcase that. Say, for instance, if you are creating posts on LinkedIn, are you showcasing what you're learning how to do, or are you positioning yourself as someone who knows how to do it? So it's all about looking over the horizon and imagining yourself there and positioning yourself in that space and not where you are. And that's just, I think it's just a key part of it. Is it all starts up here, and then applying your training and everything that's relevant to that goal to move forward. So no one gets in the car to turn the ignition to stay where they are. They go to where they want to be. So you plan that out, and then you get the job done. So it's just very important. I mean, I can definitely echo what you're saying, Mike, but yeah, mentally, let's get to that point where you know where you want to be and govern yourself as such. It's just very important to do so.
Yep. I don't really have much to add to it. I want to start getting to some of these questions. So if you guys are ready to get to these questions,
let's roll.
I love questions.
All right. So we've had some questions coming in since the beginning. Let me scroll back here. All right. So comment from Miss Lamb and Jammin. I'm trying to get it to pull up, but my computer is being.
It's on the screen.
Okay, I can't see it on my screen, so I'll let you.
Miss Lamb Jammin, hooray! She read The Art of War, and she put, "If you know yourself and your enemy, you will always win." The second part of that is, if you know yourself and not your enemy, for every win there'll be one loss. If you know your enemy but not yourself, for every win there'll be one loss. But if you don't know your enemy and you don't know yourself, you always lose, and it becomes random luck. So know yourself and know your enemy.
Yeah.
Great.
All right. So let's see. Although this it's not the topic of discussion, I'll let you guys talk about it if you'd like.
Okay, from Telvon. Can you explain what's included in the Tech Mastery program?
Sure.
So I'm assuming he's asking about the Tech Interview Mastery program. I'm not 100% certain because
yes, I'm going to work on the assumption he's talking about the Tech Interview Mastery program. And here's what that is. If you know yourself and you know your enemy, you will always be victorious. How do most people approach an interview? Well, two things. They make the mistake and they view it as an afterthought. And they go study what they feel like it. And then they go to the hiring manager and they show up, and 99% of the people get rejected. I've interviewed 6,000 people. I've hired 50. To put that into context. Now, let's say, so Alonzo, I got something for you. I got a pink dress for you. I've got a pink bear for you. I've got some pink shoes for you. And while we're at it, Alonzo, what I really want to give you is a pink card that says Barbie on it. I'm going to give it all to you for $100,000. You excited?
Not my cup of tea, but I'm sure somebody would.
So now, Telvin, I know Alonzo. Alonzo's a guy's guy. He's a family man. He's super smart. He's like me. He likes martial arts. Look at him. He's strong and powerful. Now, Alonzo, I've got a really cool, powerful SUV. Now, Alonzo, you can put your whole family in it. It's got a really strong safe in the trunk that's made out of steel in case you ever want to put anything important on it. It's got bulletproof AR 500 steel on it. It's got an 800 horsepower engine and it gets 30 miles a gallon. You can have that. Are you interested in that?
I think I'd be interested in a purchase, Mike.
Okay, so the key is what most people do is they try to sell the manager without knowing what they want. So we teach you how to think about things from a hiring manager perspective, the things they care about. So and then from there, we teach you how to sell yourselves to that hiring manager. Now, the next part of it is teaching you how to interview. And then we work through your executive presence, your leadership skills, your sales skills. Why do we do that? I just showed you all those jobs in a few minutes ago and noticed they had about a $200,000 to $300,000 pay difference between the top and bottom person on the team. And you know what it's coming from? How well you impress them on the interview. Nobody knows what you know. They know what you can show in an interview. So we have an interview training program because most people botch the interview. And the reality is this: by being able to deliver the right thing at the right time, not only do you change your chances from getting not hired versus hired, but you can earn far, far more. Last interview batch, we had someone that was a project manager, but got their first lead architect job. We had someone that was selling perfumes that got their first architect job. We had somebody that was coming from this, because it's about polishing you up. Because now, if that pink truck that I was talking about to Alonzo was bulletproof and it had all the same things, he'd like it more if it wasn't pink. I mean, let's face it, he and I would probably buy it for the right price if it was pink, but we'd probably like it more if it was black or if it was white or it was a cool kind of camo color or something that just looked kind of cool, or something that our wives would want us to have. We'd probably buy that even more importantly. And of course, we have monthly interview practices in there, and it's really about how to deliver the killer interview.
Yeah, so to get to the specifics, I'm not sure if Mike mentioned it while I was out, but the Tech Interview Mastery Program also includes a series of small batch classes that are limited to only those that are enrolled. And this upcoming batch of the Tech Interview Mastery Program is going to be limited to only 20 people. So that is the primary benefit of this program, is that you will have a intimate opportunity to learn at your maximum potential. Yeah. So you'll have that small batch of series of classes plus 6 monthly interview sessions as well. So total of roughly 10 small group sessions over the course of the prep period, plus all of that specially curated content that's in the program. All right. Let's see. Next question from Igor. Hey, Mike, how to know what to learn in the current world? So we talked in great detail about this one. This one came in 10 minutes after we started. So we got into great detail on that one. Sounds like you're getting a lot of dings.
I get dings all the time, yes. Presenting, not presenting, it doesn't matter.
All right. So Igor says, do you think that formal education is harming students by learning a lot of things that can be helpful for everything, but not good enough for any specific job?
No, and I'll explain what I think it is. Do I think formal education is going to train you for the job? In most cases, no. But here's what formal education does, or at least the way it used to be when they made it hard. If you're forced to read and learn about a lot of different people, you learn how other people think, and it makes it easier for you to connect to others. For example, when I was at Temple University and they made us read the Christian Bible, the Torah, the Quran, some Tao texts, some Buddhist texts, some Hindu texts, and you know what? It really taught me how other people thought, and I really changed my life, and I really appreciated that. Now, it also taught me how to learn. Now, when you're in a degree and they make you read this book, this book, this book, this book, this book, and go do research, it teaches you how to learn, which I think is great. Now, in the old world, when you'd go to college, there would be people that were very different than you in class. This was very special. You had liberal people, conservative people, rich people, poor people, people from India, Pakistan, the Middle East, China, Australia, New Zealand, England, Europe, Africa, and of course, America. So it taught you how to work with people that were different than you. And that's an incredibly valuable skill, because a truly magical team is going to be very diverse, because there's only 7 billion people in the world. And 1.3 billion are in Africa. There's more than 1 billion in India. There's more than 1 billion in China. So if you've got a really good team and you're truly diverse, you're going to get somebody from China, India, and Africa on your team, because that's 50% of the population right there. You're probably going to get somebody from South America too, somebody from Europe, and somebody from America if it's a really good team. It has to be diverse because there's only a limited number of people in the world. And there's a lot of writing that we had to do in college. And it was a chance where I almost learned how to use a comma and a semicolon where they're supposed to go. Not completely, but it did teach me a lot of those things. So I believe in formal education with career-specific education. Now, can you get there with career-specific education without the formal education? Yes. But, you know, I did multiple master's degrees, and I feel like I did learn something from them. Now, of course, I had to take $100,000 of leadership and CXO and sales training after them. And I took a whole lot of tech training and a whole lot of other training that wasn't covered there. But I do feel it enriched my life. How about you guys? You guys both have expensive MBAs.
I'm going to try to figure out how to say this shortly. There's benefits to formal education, and then there's detractions to formal education.
Yes.
From my perspective. Depending on who is providing the formal education, your benefits may outweigh the detractions, and your detractions may outweigh the benefits. So it really depends. I am very biased. I went to what is historically known as a teacher's college, where they actually teach about actual work and actual like doing and actual implementing of things, and not so much the theoretical side of it. So my experience, I feel like I got a better deal. So again, this is just my opinion. So more research and research focus institutions have a bit of a different focus because they're more focused on research and theory, and which, I mean, there's a need for that. There's a purpose for that. Like, I mean, God knows we wouldn't have the advances in science and medicine if we didn't have the research focused institutions. But yeah, so for me and for what we're talking about here, all in all, it also depends on a person that is being educated.
Yes.
If the person that is being educated is just going along with the motions, then
there's no value.
Then there's no benefit to any of it. Educational institutions are a place for you to push back and question, and in a healthy way.
Yes.
And that's where that's where growth will occur. So it really depends. Again, it all depends. It depends on the institution. And it depends on the person. So
Yeah.
those are my thoughts there.
And before we get to Alonzo, I don't think they're going to teach you the skills for your job.
No, exactly. So here, my dad and I, my dad being Dr. Johnson, and my dad, Dr. Long, me, we all have we have these conversations quite often. And again, it's mainly because I went to a teacher's college. My education taught me how to think and taught me how to do, not for any specific thing. It just taught me the way. It's basically like Yoda. Mike has no clue who Yoda is, but it taught me how to think and how to do and how to figure out and how to apply things in various ways, in various situations, in various aspects. It's not going to teach you how to do a job. Now, obviously, you get into specialized fields like law and medicine. They're going to teach you to do the job to a degree, but even that has a cap of being able to teach you how to do the job.
Yeah, I think it also teaches about empirical thinking. I think one of the things that conversely, and I was speaking to some members of our community, and it's ironic that during our quest for research, whether you're in teams in the MBA program or what have you, and although I may be guilty of this once or twice, I will not prove or support or deny that we use a lot of the verbiage in these documents, in these reports, in these assignments to fill not only the word amount, but conversely, when you're as a cloud architect, when you have to communicate things quickly, but not only to the point, but in detail, we utilize the executive summary. But when you're in school, you have to rattle on and on and on to get all these details and fill in every blank, dot I's, cross T's. And although we love to showcase that experience and that research, it's not needed in the real world unless you all are doing white papers. But if it's regarding money and you're talking to the powers that be, the CEO and everyone else, you got to get down to the meat just like that. So that in its way, it's not helpful. But as Chris elaborated, and also through empirical thinking, it helps us to have a starting point on how we're going to apply that in the real world.
Yes.
Yep. All right. So let's get to this next one from Ruslan. Mike, I'm currently reading the book Jack Straight from the Gut by Jack Welch. In the books, he says that he had a goal to be the CEO of the company. Now, have you ever had a goal to be the CEO of Cisco?
Ruslan, that's kind of an interesting thing. When I was at Cisco, I was functioning as an industry architect lead for an entire vertical. It was a director level position. And I was a manager of the architects, and I loved it. I finally figured the secret of my career was doing this, and then I had a massive injury. And after the massive injury, I couldn't walk for 7 years, and I was in physical therapy all day long. And well, yes, at one point I was like, oh, maybe I should be an EVP over at Cisco. That changed so I couldn't walk, to really focus on think about things of who I really wanted to be. And, that's when I really got heavily, I focused on my coaching practice much more, because if I couldn't do it anymore because of physical limitations, wouldn't it be cooler to get all these kids hired at big jobs? And I started doing it. And honestly, Ruslan, after watching all these people get jobs, people that I actually took into my home because they didn't have a home to go to, and sort of raised them as if they were my own kids. And I coached them, and then they started getting hired by companies like Cisco. I started to see the world differently, and it was like, you know what? I have more than I need. Let me go out there and change lives, and let me truly help people build big careers. In my past life, I knew how to make sick people healthy, but I didn't know how to change their family. And I had patients who couldn't afford medications, even their co-pays with their insurance. And I wanted to make people never have to think about money again, because they made so much of it that they just didn't care, and they could go on to take better care of their families, donate to charitable causes, volunteer, and help others. And that's truly my dream. And I'm living out my dream every single day of the week.
All right, let's see.
But I do love the book, Straight from the Gut.
So Cynthia says, this is my first time joining this. It's incredible what I learned so far. Glad to
Welcome.
have you here, Cynthia.
It's really proud of you, Cynthia. Please come back.
Yes. I hope you make sure you registered, and we have many more opportunities and things to share with you. So please keep coming. We'd love to have you.
All right. The age-old question from how to improve.
What?
How to improve what?
Yes. What?
Well, that's the key. You have to figure out what to improve. So that's what we're talking about today, is figuring out what it is that you need to improve. So how do you improve? First, you got to figure out what you need. And then once you figure out what is necessary for that role, find the resources to help you achieve that goal.
And actually, let's describe the process of innovation while we touch this. Here's the real innovation. Figure out what you want to desire and then work backwards and figure out what you need. Here's what's not innovation. I have these skills. What can I do with them?
Yeah. All right. Let's see here. Trying to find the next question. All right, from Red Robin. In regards to improving yourself, what should one do after completing the architect as far as continuing education? Ooh, good question.
Well, it all depends upon your goals. Because you might say that I really love being the security expert, for example, in which case I'd say focus more on security. You might be this person that loves to do cloud networking, and I'd say focus more on networking. Or you could be saying, how can I get to as far as I can in my career? And if that's the goal, most career advancement, most earnings, the real secret is to focus on your business acumen. Now, we actually have a tech leadership program for our graduates, or for other architects that are already there that want to go from $150,000 job to the skills to get, the $400,000 and $500,000 jobs years later in their career. And that's called our tech leadership program. We may actually call it something different on our actual website, but or get an MBA, a Master's in Business Administration, and get more training after your MBA on leadership, sales, executive presence, CXO relevancy. That's going to get you the big thing. But we first need to know. For the average person, the business acumen and leadership, if their goal is to move up the ranks, meaning get promoted or moved into directors of architecture or VPs of architecture or earn more as architects. But I can't give you a recommendation until I actually know your goals. Because Alonzo's goals, my goals, and Chris's goals are all going to be different. And if Alonzo's going to Palm Beach, Florida, and Chris wants to go to Tampa, and I want to go to my home in Greece, we all need a different path.
All right. So if you've got any questions that you want to throw at us, please put them in the chat box, put them in the comments if you're on LinkedIn. Let's see here. Richard says here, people are cloud hired and they still come back to us, giving back to the community and coming to classes. Absolutely. And teaching classes sometimes. So, Emperor Kiro says, hey, Mike, I'm wondering if you guys could recommend 1 to 2 books that I can read up on architecture.
Emperor Kiro, they don't any books that are on architecture that I found out there, 99% of them are engineering books, not architecture books. Harvard Business School has a relatively decent book. It won't teach you anything about architecture, but it will teach you some of the other things called Enterprise Architecture as a Strategy. That's out there. So I would definitely say that. But you're just not going to find good books out there on architecture. And here's the reason why. I can find you any little silly, well-architected framework. And here's what they do. They teach you all about how to put the tech together. But they don't teach you which problem it's solving. They don't teach you how to adapt the technology for the organization's business. And they don't teach you how to solve problems. And all you can do with that is basically say, here, customer A solved it this way. So here, customer B, you need customer A solution. But by doing so, you're jamming down the wrong solution down somebody's throat because it was designed for somebody else. The only way to learn architecture is to truly learn business, to truly understand the underlying technology and figure out how to get the business to their end goal. Because my business is totally different than somebody else's business, who's totally different from somebody else's business. And I can have 15 hospitals that all need a different architecture based upon the way their nurses and doctors work. And when we try and read a book on architecture without understanding the why. Now, there is a really good book that I can recommend by David Lithicum, The Insider's Guide to Cloud Computing. And he dispels a lot of the cloud computing myths that are in there, and it's quite a good book. It won't teach you how to be an architect, but it is an exceptionally good book to really separate the fact from the fiction in cloud. And he does a very nice job and is fairly well balanced. But it's not an architect book, but I can definitely say it'd be a good book to read for any cloud architect.
I'd like to hear your thoughts on this one, Mike. Experimental Studios says, I've often thought that IT should be considered part of the trades. So first of all, IT is a very big realm. So then not maybe some aspects. As such, there would be apprenticeships, etc. That would help with the relevant skills problem.
Unfortunately, it wouldn't teach the relevant skills at all. Because in apprenticeship, you're trying to learn by doing. So here, all of you. Router BGP 65312, neighbor 192.168, .1.1 remote AS 65313, network 192.168 mask 255.255.0, neighbor 192.168 1.2, activate. Guess what you just learned? How to do something hands-on. Now, from that information, could you tell me what a BGP community of no export means? No. Now, also, could you tell me what I need to do to not become a transit autonomous system? No. Could you tell me from that how to design my route reflectors in BGP? No. While we're at it, how many BGP peering points do I need? How could I prioritize one subnet versus another? None of that will be taught in an online apprenticeship. Apprenticeships work great for hands-on technician jobs, like wiring a cable. You can teach somebody how to make an Ethernet cable in an apprenticeship. But now, can I bring an apprentice to Jamie Dimon at Chase Bank and bring an apprentice in that meeting? No. If I tried to bring an apprentice in that meeting, security would escort me out. I'd be fired for not knowing how to be in front of a CEO, and they'd be kicked out of the room. So apprenticeships work great for tech. Like technician positions, but they don't do well for any real position. So sure, you can get a low voltage electrician pulling cable thing, and that would be considered layer one networking, and you can get an apprenticeship for that. Now, in order to get out of that into something big, you're going to need to go to school. The reality is you can't learn any real career in an apprenticeship. You can learn only hands-on technician things. Now, if you're thinking I'm saying hands-on technician things are bad, I am not. I think they're great. We don't have somebody to fix our cars, we've got nothing. We don't have somebody to fix our roads, we've got nothing. We don't have somebody to wire our houses, we have nothing. But you know what that doesn't teach us? How to design and how to do any of these higher paid technology designs. And that's why all the apprenticeships that teach somebody how to be a construction worker, nobody hires them as an architect to design their building. So the key is it could work for some of the low end things. Now, Experimental Studio, I also want you to realize that most of these low-end positions are taken over by automation and AI technology now, and cloud technology. So again, you can't learn a real job in an apprenticeship, or at least an elite job like a doctor or any of those other things, or an architect. And you really can't learn many of the real jobs, but you could learn the technician jobs like pulling cables.
All right. So Cynthia's got a two-parter. Definitely coming back. I registered for the Cloud Architect course since April last year. I'm actually getting into it now.
Good.
I have a question. I have extensive experience in networking, but I registered for the Cloud Architect course. I am confused if I want to switch to Cloud Architect or continue into Cloud Engineering. That was it. So,
Chris, can you bring up my supply and demand curve again?
Yep. Well, I thought I could. Give me a second. I thought we were done with it.
And Cynthia, there's a lot of reasons I'm going to strongly recommend you don't get into engineering. And I'm going to show you on my supply and demand curve. In fact, Cynthia, we had an engineering program and we no longer sell it for these reasons, because I want to change lives, not give people the skills of yesterday. Okay, so go to the second one, Chris. The second slide.
It's just the second slide.
Okay, that's where I wanted you to be. Okay, I wanted that high intersection. So right now we have a cloud architect position. And that red dot is what the pay is. And here's the reason. There's 1,000,001 engineers that exist out there, but there's very few people that understand technology, that understand design, that understand how to present, that have business acumen, leadership, and sales skills. That's why they're architects. Now, Chris, artificial intelligence can now write a Terraform script. It can write a Python script. It can write a bash shell script like a cloud engineer would do. And it can also do these things. So Chris, I want you to increase the supply. Artificial intelligence is going to increase the supply automatically. And by increasing the supply, we already cut the salary probably by 80%. Now, because artificial intelligence can do 50% of what a cloud engineer or a DevOps engineer or a software engineer can do today, and it's only going to get better, those engineering jobs are dying. Now, while we're at it, a lot of people teach engineering, but nobody teaches architecture except for us. So because there's a surplus of engineers out there compared to architects, Chris, could you add some more supply? So that's the future of engineering versus if you go to slide 3, you can see the future of architecture. Look at that demand, look at that intersection. So I strongly recommend not engineering, because half of the engineers are going to be laid off and replaced by artificial intelligence within 5 to 7 years. And those that are not are going to be competing with artificial intelligence. And they're also going to be competing with very well-trained engineers who get a far better engineering education in India or Asia than we would in the US or the UK or Canada for the most part. They're going to get a much better engineering education. So the work's going to shift overseas, because it doesn't matter whether you're an engineer. Cynthia, we're on those C words. And I like the Cookie Monster who like the word C. So you can be in California, you can be in Cambodia, you can be in the Cayman Islands, you can be in Cameroon or Cape Town. We're Charlotte, North Carolina, but I can tell you the difference. You're going to get paid. No company is going to pay for an engineer in California in the future when they can hire somebody in Cape Town who's probably just as good, more motivated, and will get paid a small fraction. What they're going to be looking for is the best. And why is that? It's $1.49 million for the average house in in San Francisco. It's about $24,000 for the average house in Cameroon. Your house is your biggest expense, so you can see the difference, how much more you need to earn to have the same standard of living in, say, California than you would Cameroon versus Charlotte, North Carolina. Again, it'll be lower cost of living. So I don't recommend any engineering careers.
Enough with the seeds, Mike. All right, let's move on.
We didn't talk about cookies like Cookie Monster.
Yeah. Would it be logical to be a network architect before an enterprise architect in order to be a better enterprise architect? Does the deeper tech knowledge allow me to make better large-scale decisions?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's two things. One is you're not going to get your first job as an enterprise architect, so you're going to have to take some architect job. Okay, so I want you to think about how the enterprise architect works. Improving business performance. So you now are an expert on BGP and MPLS. Now, how do you convince me to go spend $1 billion? You don't. Now, how is your knowledge of the network going to improve my business performance? It's not. Now, when you're trying to sell me something, did learning networking give you better sales skills? Did it teach you to give a better presentation in front of a 10,000 person audience? No, it's going in the wrong direction. The better your tech skills are, the less your business skills will be. You can only focus on one thing. There's a sport in America called baseball. And you got the guys that throw the ball that are paid better than the guys that hit the ball. And when the guy that throws the ball gets up on bat, you know what he or she can't do? Hit the ball. And they're still the most highly paid person on the team. And you know why nobody cares if they can't hit the ball? Because they can throw the ball where nobody else can hit it. So by learning the skills of somebody else's job, you just reduced your ability and your earnings and your future and your job. It's the exact opposite way to go. It's a great question, though. And it's the mistake most people make. If I get better at my old job, how is it going to help me at my new job? It won't. It'll hinder you from getting better at your new job.
All right. From Wang, Mike, how crucial is project management for a cloud architect? Do you have any stories to share?
Yes, Wang. In every architecture, I hire a project manager. And they do it. Wang, here's the thing. Most people seem to think there's going to be a one-man wrecking crew that's going to do everything.
Right.
Look, I'm a cloud architect. I go talk to my customer. I find out what they want. I speak to them with the account manager. When I'm done that, I go, I need a network architect. I need a security architect. I need an IAM architect. I need a big data architect. I need some database administrators. I need some DevOps engineers. I need some cloud engineers. And then when we're done that, we all design the thing together. I present it back and I sell it to the customer. The second that's set, and now if there's an RFI, RFP, or RFQ, if it's a big customer, I'm going to hire a guy like Alonzo who has a project management background. And he's going to make sure that all the people respond to the RFIs, RFPs, and RFQs on time. Now after we respond to the RFI, RFP, I got to go sell this thing to the customer. I got to go negotiate it with the account executive for the next 3 to 6 months. The second it's done, here's what happens. We turn it over to another team. There's 1 to 10 project managers that get involved to project manage it. There's what's called the service delivery executive who manages the relationship between the company, like say Cisco or a client, or Amazon and the client. And then they take a team of post-sales engineers, which are typically overseas, and then they go build the thing. And then when that's done, they hand it to another group called SysOps, or maintenance people. And when it breaks, they call a technical support team. So I don't know anything about project management because I'm not a project manager. I'm an architect. But I can tell you this. I've had a really great project manager, or many of them work with me in every project I've ever been. And they all make the biggest difference in the world. Very good skill to have, but the skills for somebody else's job. It's like trying to be a doctor and saying I need to fly an airplane. It's just somebody else's career.
All right. So John O says, I understand end-to-end security and can present it in my sleep, but I only know the basics of networking. Can I interview for cloud security roles at this point?
Well, if you're a cloud security person, you're not going to be doing networking. You're going to be doing security. So sure, you can interview to be an airplane pilot because you trained to fly a plane, but didn't train as a mechanic. It's really the same thing. But I'm going to say this to you. If you don't know networking, I don't think you know security. Wait, what? Well, if you don't know networking, you don't understand microsegmentation. If you don't understand networking, you don't have any concept of quality of service and the ability to prioritize one's traffic over another, so you're losing security. If you don't know how to look at a TCP IP packet or an IP packet or a UDP packet, and you can't understand what's going on in the headers, you're not going to truly understand how to create these firewall rules or how these IDS, IPS systems work. So the key is if you don't know networking to any degree, you're really not going to be able to do any kind of security. So you probably know more security in your sleep, or you're only working on a percentage of networking, say just a firewall as opposed to all of it. Now, that doesn't mean I need to just become a network engineer. That's not there, but you do need to understand the impact of network security. And you may already know that, or you may not, but no, I wouldn't be learning somebody else's job.
All right. Iron Earth question. Advice for new to tech 61-year-old tech person. Goal: work as long as I can and save 75% for when I cannot work.
You can easily do that.
Do you think? There. Okay. So that there wasn't anything else after that. So yeah.
So the answer is why not? Here's the secret to doing this. And I can tell you, it's what I did in my youth. I did two things. One, I lived way beneath my means. When everybody else I worked with had a Mercedes, I drove a Honda. I paid for my Honda in cash. When everybody else that had the same job as me had a 6-bedroom house, I lived in a 2-bedroom condo, paid it off in cash real fast so I didn't have any expenses. What else did I do? I never went to fancy restaurants because I didn't need to, and I was able to retire when I was 34 years old. So the key is boost your business acumen, boost your leadership, boost your executive presence, boost your emotional intelligence and communication skills, master your career. Don't waste any time in anybody else's career. Leverage your life experience as much as you can and go after it. And you can do it. So I retired at 34 and I stayed retired for wow. And then I only came out of retirement because I saw the garbage training that existed in cloud computing. And I realized that nobody would ever get any kind of decent job which was out there. And I've retrained everybody else's graduates, and my students are getting hired every day, including 63-year-old Sig over in Germany and 61-year-old Robert Welch, who made a video. You can see it on our YouTube channel. And he got a fantastic job where he can easily afford to save a lot.
All right, John O. If you think I should do more on networking as a cloud security architect, what parts are most important as a follow-up to it?
I don't know what you know, Jono.
Yeah.
I have no idea. So I can't tell you your gaps. I'd have to assess you and say, okay, this is really what you know, not versus what you think you know. And then from there, I could determine if you needed networking, security, communication, leadership, sales, executive presence. You can come on one of our webinars and I can ask you a question or two and I can find it out real quickly. But I don't make recommendations without understanding the problem first, because that means I'm guessing. And I don't like hope as a management or a leadership strategy. I like a plan.
Oh. All right. Let's see. John O asks, what's the difference between cloud security architect and cybersecurity expert?
Well, a cybersecurity expert is a meaningless term. Here's what an expert is. It's someone that has at least 10,000 hours in a small domain and knows it better than the rest. But it's a garbage bag term that means nothing. Somebody may tell me they're an expert and I can pick them apart in 2 minutes and realize they're not. So, an expert's a meaningless term. Same thing with subject matter expert. It's subjective. What's not subjective is what a cloud security architect does. They design a security solution to protect an organization's assets. Now that solution will be different if they've got a small asset versus a big asset. It'll be different based upon the risks versus their non-risk. It'll be different based on anything. A cloud security architect is an expert at designing a solution to solve a customer's cybersecurity needs. Cybersecurity expert could be anything. I don't know what it means. It could be a penetration tester that's been doing penetration testing for the last 15 years. They may be an expert. Heck, they could have 5 years experience and be an expert, or they can have 20 years experience and be a disaster. It's a meaningless term. So no, there's no, and knowing how to be a great security engineer and configure firewalls teaches you nothing about how to design them, how to design your demilitarized zones, how to design your IAM strategy, how to design your network security, how to do any of it. So, one term is very specific. Like a penetration tester is very specific. A cloud security architect is very specific. A defensive security engineer is very specific. Any other term that's filled with fluff is meaningless to me, and I don't know what they mean. Alonzo, you think you're strong?
It's all a matter of opinion.
Yeah. Okay, so I might think somebody that's got a 700-pound deadlift is strong. I was a power lifter. I deadlifted 700 pounds in high school. Actually, high school. Now, somebody else might think a 200-pound deadlift is strong. I don't know. Strong compared to what? Power lifters, marathon runners, ordinary average people. So I don't use subjective terms.
All right. All right. So we got a couple of questions left, and then we're going to be wrapping up. This one's more of a comment. Cynthia says, thank you so much. I'd wrestled with this for a year. Now I can focus on that cloud architect course I bought from Go Cloud Careers. You guys are the best. Thank you, Mike.
Awesome. And I hope to meet you in class on Thursday.
Absolutely.
All right. Manuel says, how can one navigate around the years of experience that is basic norm of every job opening after going through your cloud architect program?
Okay. No one cares about your year's experience. They can do it. Ivan Tamba, hired by AWS, last job working as a waiter. Coyote, college student, hired by AWS as a solution architect, 0 experience. Jordan Kitko, hired by AWS, 0 years of experience, another college student. Valwinder, stay-at-home mom, hired by Microsoft as a cloud solution architect. Vladimir, 24-year-old kid in college, got hired as a cloud architect. Daniel Bosu, never graduated high school, last job was selling shoes at Nordstrom, hired by JP Morgan Chase as a cloud architect. While we're at it, Jennifer Ema was a mental health tech, hired by JP Morgan Chase with 0 tech background, hired as a cloud architect. Wallace Agano, incredible guy. You can see a video of him on our channel, along with Daniel. Hired as an enterprise architect, skipped the whole architect thing, and that's a job which typically wants 10 to 15 years experience because he was good. While we're at it, we recently got the guy that sold perfume. He was really nice. Raymond just got hired as a cloud architect. Kemi was a project manager, just got a lead architect job. Al Legister got hired by Deloitte as a senior solution architect. His last job was in sales, selling consumer products like tissues for Kimberly-Clark. I could keep going on, but I'm going to stop there. The point is when you're great, it doesn't matter. Now, if you're applying for jobs, which we would tell you not to do, you're going to get blocked by HR. But if you're leveraging recruiters and they put you directly in front of the hiring manager, you'll get it. I even had a student, his name begins with a D. He went, interviewed for a cloud architect job, and they asked him if he'd be interested in being a chief information officer, straight out of our program. So the key is, how good are you? Now, in the world where there was a huge supply of architects, it would matter. But there's nobody out there that can do the job. I mean, literally nobody, because everybody's learning how to code, which is not our job. They're learning Terraform, which is not our job. They're learning Bash and Linux, which is not our job, and nobody's teaching them how to design. And if you finally find somebody that can design, can they deliver a presentation? Can they sell? Do they have the business acumen, know how to translate business requirements to it? And because of that, architects are like unicorns. And people are willing to hire somebody like Daniel, who didn't even finish high school.
All right. So we got, I'm going to let you address this one. My immediate response to this one is please attend our webinar on Thursday. But Emmanuel says, can you highlight the upward flow chart towards achieving one's career growth after acquiring the cloud architecture training and working mostly when time is a constraint?
I'm going to tell you one thing. If you're looking for a flow chart, you already missed the point.
Yep.
It's not about a flow chart. It's about what are the goals that you have. It's about what are your unique strengths that you can capitalize on them, and what skills do you need specific to you to get to that next level. Believe me, Chris and Alonzo both need a different career development plan. I also would need a different career development plan because we're all unique. The second you look for a flow chart, that's the answer. That's the way to failure, because not everybody's the same. Not everybody can follow the same plan.
And also keep in mind that AWS, they use flow charts for their certifications. They take you through this whole life cycle process, but you probably only need a small 5% of those certifications to be an icing on the cake with already established competency. So like Mike said, don't rely on those flow charts.
And then most of those things are in somebody else's career.
All right. So this is going to be our last question, and then we'll wrap it up. BJ, how can one transition from a help desk support type role into a cloud architecture role?
First, there's a free guide we have on how to become an architect. I'll ask my team to pop that in there for you. Secondly, we have a webinar on Thursday, and I'd like you to attend this, but I'll give you a little high level. The first thing you have to do is convince people you're not a help desk person. And why is that? Because the brand of an architect and the brand of a techie is very different. The second set of things that you need to do is develop system design skills. And that's about learning the network, data center, and the cloud skills. The next thing is learning how to sell. The next thing is learning enough business to understand how to solve business problems with technology. After that's going to have to be learn how to lead, and it's going to have a lot to do with learning how to present. Now, you're also going to need a marketing strategy to show that you're not help desk anymore. Look, I love help desk people. They're smart, they're capable, they communicate well. There's a lot of really good skills in help desk. And believe me, I call them plenty. But the key is the person who fixes my tech is not the person who I think is going to design my tech, nor would any company think so. So those are kind of the real secret things that you need to think about. But join the free webinar. Please download the free guide. We can easily get you there. We do it all the time. And whether you're with us or whether you want to go get an MBA to learn some of these business skills, I just want you to get the job of your dreams and have the life of your dreams. So please get the free guide and come to the free webinar. And in this free webinar, I'll be on Zoom so we can talk and have conversations and I can assess you as well.
All right.
I'm going to address John's question. John, we are not DevOps people. So learning DevSecOps is not going to make you a cloud security architect. Learning somebody else's career just makes you worse at yours. Because every minute you spend learning somebody else's job, you're not learning your job, but your smart competition is. So I don't recommend people that want to be airplane pilots learn how to be flight attendants. I don't recommend people that want to be surgeons go to law school. And I sure don't recommend architects that want to be focused on the network go learn DevOps, or cloud architects learn DevOps, because it's not what we do. It's the skill of somebody else's job. And when you go to your doctor, if they're an expert dog walker, do you care? I don't. If I get throat surgery, do I care how well they're dressed? I don't care. Do I care how good their surgical technique is? Yeah. So, focus on what matters. That's the secret to advancing over your competition. Now, here's the worst argument I've heard for learning other people's careers, and I've heard it a lot. Well, if I don't know how other people do their job, how am I going to tell them how to do their job? Well, I'm going to tell you this right now. Anybody that thinks that micromanaging a professional is okay will be looking for a new job very, very quickly. So I want you to all have a great thing. So what do we talk about today? Supply and demand curves and how to use that macroeconomic and microeconomic knowledge to have a better career. We talked about learning what you need to know versus what we want to know. Are you learning the things that serve you? Or are you learning for your future career? Or are you learning the skills from your last career? And we talked about ways to truly maximize your salary. Please download the free Win the Interview Today guide. Please download. Come join us for the interview webinar, and please join us for the How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. The links are all in the chat box, right, Chris and Tyro?
Yep. They
okay.
Sure are.
And tomorrow, we're going to answer your questions between 2 and 4 p.m. to help you get to your career goals. You tell us your career goals, and we will help you get there. Because I love helping people get hired. It's almost every day now that a student says, guess Mike, I got cloud hired. And if you're our students or not your students, I love when people get hired. It's my mission in life to change the lives and help people build the most elite tech careers that are out there. Thanks so much for attending, and I can't wait to see you tomorrow.
All right. Bye, everybody. Thank you.